haunting images of our nation's past. I'm Jill Horner. This is Comcast Newsmakers. With me this hour is Brian Peterson. He is the Chief Curator for the James A. Michener Art Museum. Thanks for being with us. Nice to see you.
Thank you very much.
We're talking about an incredible exhibit that focuses on our nation's history, but also what this history means to us today.
Well, it's easy to forget that, isn't it? I mean, we call ourselves a nation of immigrants, and what is the famous poem on the Statue of Liberty? Give us your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. That whole dream of freedom that drew people to our country from Europe and all over the world is embodied in the story of Ellis Island. And this exhibition is a wonderful combination of historic photographs of people who actually went through Ellis Island, and then a series made about 5-10 years ago by a New York photographer named Stephen Wilkes, who photographed the abandoned hospital complex of the island. And they're very haunting pictures of the interiors, the way it looked after 50 years of neglect, basically. And they're very moving pictures, and so the exhibition combines the actual people who went through Ellis Island and then what it looked like later.
So let's focus on the historic images first, because these would look like any member of our own family, potentially, who had come through Ellis Island. Talk to us a little bit about the images that we're going to see and what these mean in terms of, this is an overall collection, but what they meant at the time in terms of congressional action.
Well, right. The images are by a photographer named Ellis Island, who was a very important person in the history of photography. One of the pioneer sort of social consciousness photographers who, in a sense, the camera was an extension of the person's conscience. And there was a lot of anti-immigrant sentiment in the country back then, which has continued to some degree, unfortunately. And Ellis Island was essentially hired to photograph Ellis Island and to really see in such a way that the humanity of these immigrants was made apparent. And the idea that they're really no different from the people who landed on Plymouth Rock, or it's who we are as a country, the nation of immigrants. And so he photographed the people right as they got off the boat, full of all their hopes and fears and dreams, and unfortunately, some of them were not physically healthy, and so they had the hospital complex of Ellis Island, and some of them were had to go there, and something like 1% of them never made it across the river to the land of freedom. So they poignantly could see the country right across the river, but they never got there. So that's a lot. That's part of what this exhibition is about.
And when you talk 1%, that's 100,000.
That's over 100,000 people. There were 12 million people that went through Ellis Island.
So let's talk a little bit about the contemporary images as well, because visitors to Ellis Island can now visit this once closed hospital ward. But these are images from just a few years ago, and they're really hauntingly beautiful. Yeah,
there are a couple that stick in my mind. One is there's a room that's very, very beat up with paint peeling off the walls. In the middle of it, there's a suitcase. That was an actual suitcase that was left by one of the immigrants, and it's very poignant to see that object there in the middle of the room. There's another one which is a washroom, which, if you look very carefully, there's a mirror on the wall, and in the mirror you can see a reflection of the Statue of Liberty. So it's a very powerful symbol of how, sort of so close but so far. It's over 100,000 people, as you say, who got all the way across the ocean. They could see New York City across the river, but they were never allowed. And some of them actually died there in the hospital complex, too.
And we just have a minute left. This is an exhibit, Ellis Island, Ghosts of Freedom, that runs through October 10th. Why is this such an important story to tell at the Michener?
Well, it's first of all, it's part of our history as a nation. It's also really good art. I mean, that's kind of what we're about. It's art that talks about memory, and it's very skillful. And it's full of compassion also. I mean, when you see the faces of these immigrants, you can't help but feel their humanity. And so it's important for all those reasons.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We've been talking with Brian Peterson of the James A. Michener Art Museum. I'm Jill Horner for Comcast Newsmakers.